Namaste. How are you all? Great privilege to be here. Very, very happy to be presenting the topic of Hindu identity. I'd like to think this presentation would set things in motion and challenge the way we think about Hindu and our identity, but perhaps it'll raise a few eyebrows and perhaps you may not agree, and that's totally fine. The presentation is based on various resources and various sources, so I'm happy to discuss with you during the question and answer session if there's anything you don't agree with. Right, cool. Keep going past Anil. There we go. So, I shall commence today's presentation with a discussion around the origins of the word Hindu. The word Hindu is proudly and profoundly used in many of our ancient texts and books. One of these being Rig Veda, which is the world's oldest written text. But throughout the centuries, there have been several cases of distortion and manipulation of the word, leading to a sense of confusion as to what this word actually means. Furthermore, this has partly become a major contributor which perhaps has prevented various pockets of the Hindu society from identifying themselves with this word. Other words such as Sanatana Dharma and Vedic Dharma have started coming into play. The single word Hindu is so profound that it is pretty much undefinable in nature. The origins of the word are pre-Islamic, and as mentioned before, several citations are found within our old ancient texts. The analysis of Mahabharata shows that there were two Sindhu rivers and two Sindhu provinces in eastern and western part of Akhand Bharat. This is Bharat before split. From Sindhustan, which is the side of the Sindhu river which is called Sindhustan, the word Sindhu had transformed into Hindu through Panini grammar and various other influences. However, this word Sindhu represented not a river, but an ocean. The magnitude of the word covers surroundings of the western and eastern part of Bharat and the southern peninsula surrounded by Sindhu, the Samudra or ocean in this context. Such was the power of the word by just pronouncing Hindu, the entire geography of Bharat is visualized. It constitutes the entire landmass from the oceans to the Himalayas, detailing surroundings from the north to west by the Indus River, which is also called in Sanskrit the Sindhu River, and also the north to east by the Brahmaputra River, in ancient Sanskrit also called the Sindhu River, and south to west and south to east surrounded by the Indian Ocean, Sindhu Samudra. So as you can see, the word Hindu is so vast, it unites culture, history, as well as geography. One important thing to note is that in all references of our texts with regards to Maharana Pratap, Shivaji Maharaj, Guru Tej Bahadur, Guru Govind Singh, and many other poets, the word Hindu Dharma was used. They fought for Hindu Dharma, they defended Hindu Dharma, they sacrificed their lives for Hindu Dharma. Words such as Sanatana Dharma, Vedic Dharma, Bharatvarsh, and Bharat Mata were not used in their course of fighting, defending, and sacrificing. In their understanding and spirit, the word Hindu Dharma encompasses all. I shall now move on to explain why religion, faith, and a way of life are incorrect translations and descriptions of Hindu identity. I shall start with a quote from Sri M.S. Golwakaji, P.P. Guruji, who states the following so eloquently: "We, the Hindus, have based our whole existence on God, and therefore it is probable that the Hindu society has developed in an all-comprehensive manner with a bewildering variety of phases and forms, but with one thread of unification running inherently through the multitude of its expressions and manifestations. All the sects, their various castes in the Hindu fold can be defined, but the term Hindu cannot be defined because it comprises all." Of course, many valiant attempts at defining Hindu have been made from time to time, but all such definitions have proven to be incomplete. These definitions do not express the whole truth. More so, it was like an amalgamation of people's thoughts and perceptions shaped by centuries of influences. The origin of our people, that is the date from which we have been living here as a civilized entity, is still unknown to the scholars of history. In a way, we are anadi, without a beginning, and to define such people is impossible, just as we cannot express or define reality, because words themselves came into existence only after reality. The famous scholar Pandit Ganga Prasad Upadhyay also wrote about the indefinable nature of Hindus in a similar fashion. In fact, since the Abrahamic period, people have generally tried to classify Hindu as a religion, a faith, a way of life, a culture and/or tradition, or a multitude of these things. Completely and utterly wrong. Why do we have to subjugate ourselves to such bounded, limited, confined definitions introduced over the last few centuries, when the very nature of Hindus are unbounded, limitless, and infinite to the point that the words in the English dictionary cannot even begin to scratch the surface when it comes to describing the beauty of Hindu Dharma? Sure, it definitely may encompass a few of these things, faith, way of life, religion, but to point to one or several of these and say this is the translation of Hindu is utterly incorrect. Such translations don't do justice to the word Hindu. Now, I know in several countries, I can take Australia for an example, we are forced sometimes to describe ourselves this way. People may come up to me, and they have on several instances, and go, so what's your religious background? So I can either say, if I'm tired or lazy, I can just say, look, I'm Hindu, and end the conversation there. Or I can choose to say, I'm Hindu, but it's not a religion. It constitutes all the past, present, and future, and living and flourishing. It constitutes many millennia of worth of history and traditions and customs and geography. So don't ask me what religious background I am. That person may never speak to me again, but that should be the reality. It is best described as Hindu Dharma, and this would constitute the most suitable way of addressing this Hindu identity. What is Dharma? Dharma encompasses all. A beautiful quote by Swami Dayananda Saraswati Ji from Arya Samaj, in which he says the following: Hindu Dharma is like an ocean. The way countless waves arise in the ocean, on the same way you can see in this Dharma. There is one sect of people who drinks water after filter, and another sect of people who only drink milk. There is one sect of people who are lifelong sadhus. There is one sect of people who worship formless divine, another sect of people who worship avatars, divine incarnations. There is one sect of people who practice only philosophy, and another sect of people who only meditate and or pray. This is the beauty of Hindu Dharma. Such magnitude, such vastness, such broadness, unbounded, limitless, and beyond perception. Once again, no English word translates to Dharma. The closest word to understanding Dharma is probably the word civilization, which Prithikaji mentioned in the start of this session. However, we must understand that this is still not a direct translation of the word Dharma. Swami Vivekananda Ji quotes the following: Hindus are the most exclusive nation in the world. Why does he say that? Let's analyze the word nation and look at it in more detail. The following has been summarized from a variety of sources, researchers, and books. A nation indicates a group or community of people which has been traditionally living in a particular land, which has its own distinctive culture, and which has an identity separate from other people of the world by virtue of the distinctiveness of its culture. The cultural distinctiveness of a nation may be based on its race, religion, language, or a combination, or some or all of these factors, but all in all, there has to be distinct culture, which will mark the nation out from peoples belonging to that land. Third, there may be internal differences in several respects amongst the people belonging to this culture, but in spite of these differences, there is an overall sense of harmony born out of the fundamental elements of their culture, and a sense of pride which inspires them a desire to maintain their separate identity from the rest of the world. Finally, as a result of these factors, this group of people has its own outlook towards the history of its traditional homeland. So, a community of people which possess the above features is a nation, And the country in which it has been traditionally living and where it has developed its distinct culture is called the motherland of that nation, its traditional homeland. But the country or land by itself can never be the nation. So in other words, a nation is not a territorial unit, but an emotional unit or an emotional connection with the territorial base. We Hindus are a nation ourselves. In fact, we are the oldest surviving nation on earth. There are many points of difference within the Hindu fold caused by language, region, tradition, customs, but the fundamental sense of Hindu identity, unity and harmony cuts through all differences and prevails over this community. This common spiritual and flowing current is that of none other than Hindu Dharma. In other words, Hindu Dharma is the distinguishing feature and common voice for the Hindu nation. Therefore, Hindus living across the globe, in Bharat, Asia Pacific, Americas, Europe, Africas, we Hindus are everywhere. But wherever we are all very much part of the global Hindu nation. We all carry this emotional connection that defines us as a part of the Hindu nation. To sum up, I'd like to reiterate why it is important to define this identity. There have been several factors causing the misrepresentation of the Hindu identity. I should briefly mention a few of them. There's two main ones. The first one is the dilution of the identity, which involves neglecting our primary identity and using a secondary identity. Things such as people of Indian origin, I'm South Indian, you're North Indian, Kannada, Tamilian, ISKCON, etc. Such identities are very narrow and very divided, and they misrepresent the big picture and the role that Hindu Dharma has to play. Secondly, political and mass media forums are also misrepresenting our identity using phrases like cow worshippers and idol worshippers. It's really our duty to set this right, and the first way we can start is to make sure we understand and use the identity of Hindu Dharma correctly. The following 3 points are the sources of identity. Just have a read there. Ascriptive, cultural, and territorial. Hindu Dharma identity covers all these things and much, much more. As stated many times in this presentation, Hinduism is not just a religion, not just a way of life. It is Dharma, best called Hindu Dharma. The word Hindu Dharma is so profound that it is our duty to define and use this identity correctly. But most importantly, to know what this identity represents, even if it cannot be defined. We must know that such an identity represents the dharmic, cultural, social, and ethnic cohesiveness. It portrays an ancient history of many millennia, constituting all the living, flourishing, and surviving from the sacred land of Bharat Mata and all over the world. The word civilization comes close to defining this identity in English, so we can say that the Hindu identity is a civilizational identity. We Hindus have evolved, migrated, crossed borders, changed borders, and migrated across to Western countries. This cycle continues to happen, but just like the Greeks, the Germans, the Jews, we as a nation have our own identity. And this identity allows us to connect with each other on a global level, share our resources, share our knowledge, and support each other for the benefit of the community. This conference is a major step for all of its achieving this goal and providing an inspiration which we work together towards tomorrow. Sorry, I'm done.